Right, welcome everyone to today's live lesson. Today we're going to look at simple and compound interest. Okay, so we are finished with percentages. We are comfortable with percentages, and now we're going to start to look at financial maths. Okay, so the concept is exactly the same. We are still going to be calculating percentages, but we have a few different formulas that we can actually use. So let's start with simple interest. Okay, so what exactly is simple interest? So I'm not sure whether you guys know how it works when we invest money or when we borrow money, but in short, what happens is if we invest a certain amount, okay, we receive a certain percentage of that amount that's invested after a period of time. Okay, so let's say that I invest, so we invest, let's say $1,000. Okay, so that's how much we start off with. We invest $1,000. And if it's simple interest, I will receive a certain percentage of this $1,000 after a period of time. Okay, so I'm going to draw a number line over here. Okay, and we start off with this investment amount, okay, with this $1,000. And let's say that the interest rate, so let's say that the rate was, let's say 6%. Okay, so that means that after a year, I will receive 6% of the $1,000. Okay, I hope that makes sense to everyone. So if this is my starting point, okay, so time is 0, then after 1 year, I will receive whatever 6% of 1,000 is. Okay, so in essence, I now have $1,000 plus 6% of 1,000. Okay, and you guys remember how to deal with if I have a percentage of a certain amount. We can just say that this is 6/100 times whatever the amount is I'm calculating the percentage of. Okay, so that's after 1 year. Let me just move this quickly. Ooh. Okay. So now, after 2 years, what will happen is that I will again receive 6% of $1,000. Right? So now I will have, so I will be worth whatever the answer to this was. So let's quickly calculate it. So what's 1,000 plus 6% of 1,000? Okay, so we have 1,060. Okay, so now after 2 years, I will have in total 1,060 plus again 6% times 1,000. Okay, so you guys can see that every single year I receive exactly the same amount of interest. Okay, so my net worth is essentially growing linearly. So in a straight line, every single year, it just keeps changing according to that single amount. Okay, so just by this number line, we can see what's happening. Now, there's a very nice formula for us to calculate the total amount of interest that I've received after a period of time. Okay, and that formula is simple interest is equal to PRT, okay, over 100. And let me quickly explain what these letters stand for. Okay, so let's just move this up. So P is for principal. Okay, so my principal or my starting amount. So that's principal. R is simply my rate. So that's my interest rate. And then T is my time. Okay, so the period for which I'm investing or lending money. Okay, that's how we calculate this simple interest. Now, it's just very important to note that when I use this formula, I'm only calculating the extra money that I'm receiving. Okay, so I'm not calculating the total amount of money that I have, but I'm just calculating this extra interest. Okay, so that would essentially be this extra interest okay, times how many years? Okay, I hope that makes sense to everyone. I'm not seeing any objections in the chat, so I'm assuming everyone is good. Okay, great. So now that we know what the formula is and how to use it, let's do a few examples. Okay, so find the simple interest paid in the following cases. So only the interest. Okay, so I'll just do one of these. So for A, I have a principal amount of $300. So I'm investing $300, and we have an interest rate of 6% and time 4 years. And we know that it's simple interest. Okay, so we can just say simple interest is equal to PRT divided by 100. Okay, and this is equal to, we know what the principal is. So that's 300 times my rate is 6 and my time is 4 years. Everything divided by 100. Okay, so no questions so far. We are all good. So this would be equal to, let's see, so that's 300 times 6 times 4 divided by 100. And you can put this directly into your calculator, and this would give me $72. Okay, now, if I wanted to calculate the total amount that I now have, I would need to take my principal amount, so this 300, and I'd need to add 72. Okay, great stuff. But that's not part of this question. We only needed to calculate the simple interest. Okay, cool. Next question. So calculate the rate of interest per year, which will earn the given amount of interest. Okay, so this question is a little bit different. We have to look at the information that we actually have. Okay, so we need to calculate the rate of interest. So we don't know what R is. We know what the principal amount is, and we know what T is, or the time, and we know what the interest is. Okay, so in terms of my formula, let's look at what we have and what's missing. So simple interest is equal to PRT divided by 100. Okay, so what do we have? We have the principal, okay? We have the time, it's 4 years. We have the simple interest that's earned over this 4 years, okay, over these 4 years. We have that, but we do not have this rate. Okay, so here we have to solve for a variable. Okay, we have certain information is missing, so we're going to solve for R. Okay, firstly, let's substitute these values. So my interest, okay, so this is for A, my interest is 112. Okay, and this would be equal to P is 400. Okay, and we don't know what R is, so let's just put R as is, and the time is 4 years. Everything divided by 100. Okay, so immediately we can try to simplify, okay, because we're solving for a variable, so let's just see if we can simplify anything. Okay, so these two zeros will cancel out, okay, remember, so we have 400 divided by 100, so that would just cancel out. And then we are left with 4 times 4. Okay, so remember, numbers times numbers, letters times letters. So essentially, we are left with 112 is equal to 16R. Okay, and now we're calculating for this R. How do we do that? Divide by 16 and divide by 16. There we go. So R is equal to, so let's see, what is 112 divided by 16? R is equal to 7. Okay, so this is 7%. Again, don't get confused. This is not 7 over 100. Okay, so we leave it as 7%. Okay, good stuff. See if you can do question B. If you're watching this as a recording, you can just pause it and do. All right, cool stuff. Moving on. Next question. So Emma invests $1,200 at a rate of 6% per annum. Simple interest. Okay, so this is something that you'll definitely see. If you guys don't know what this abbreviation is for, that is just for per annum. Okay, so per annum. And that just means that it's calculated per year. Okay, cool stuff. And they tell us that it's simple interest and it's for 10 years. So calculate the interest. Okay, so for A, we need to calculate the interest. Okay, very simple. We just plug and play into our formula. So the simple interest is equal to PRT over 100. And let's substitute. This interest is equal to my principal amount. My principal, or my starting amount, is 1,200 times my rate is just 6 and my time is 10. and this is divided by 100. Okay, and we can simplify, but I'm going to put this directly into my calculator just to save us some time. Okay, so times 6 times 10 divided by 100, and my simple interest is equal to 720. Okay, so now for B, we need to calculate the total amount she has after 10 years. And this is always where the confusion comes in, because questions in the exams, they won't specify, okay, calculate the interest and then calculate the total amount. They'll just ask you, how much does this person have after 10 years? And then what a lot of students do is they just calculate the interest and then they leave it there. But we have to add that to my principal amount to determine how much we are worth after this period. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So my total is equal to, so that will be my principal, so 1,200 plus 700. So that's 720, my mistake. Okay, and this is just equal to 1,920, and we are working with dollars. Don't forget your units. Okay, the units will most likely be supplied in the exams, but just remember to add it. Okay, so great stuff. That's my total amount that I have after 10 years. Okay, easy stuff. I'm very happy. So there's one thing that I want to show you guys. Now, this is actually not part of the course. This is taught in CAPS. There is a formula that we can use to get directly to this final total amount. Okay, so I'll show you guys what the formula is, just so that you kind of can have an understanding. And it looks very similar to my compound interest formula. Okay, just with one slight difference. Okay, so I'm just showing it. This is just kind of additional work if you want to see it like that. Okay, so that formula is A is equal to P times 1 plus R over 100, and we multiply the time period, which is N, over here. Okay, so you guys will see once we get to compound interest, it's very similar to that formula. Okay, let's just quickly look at what it does actually mean. So this is still my principal, so my starting amount. This A, this is actually for accumulated amount or my total. Okay, so we'll say total, or we can also say accumulated amount. Okay, and the same, so R is still my rate. Now N is actually my time period. Okay, so instead of using T, we use N. Okay, so my time period. Okay, and it's actually not my time period, but it's the amount of, well, we can see it as periods that the interest is calculated. Okay, but you guys won't do anything as difficult, so don't stress too much about that. Just remember that this N represents the time. Okay, so let me use it for this question. So A is equal to my principal, which is 1,200, times 1 plus the rate is 6%, so this is 6 over 100, times my time period, which is 10. Okay, and if you put this into your calculator, you will directly get to this total amount. Okay, so let's just quickly prove that we can use it. So that's 1 plus 6 over 100 times 10. Okay, and there we go. We have 1,920. Okay, so that's a formula to calculate your total amount and not just your simple interest. Okay, cool stuff. Moving on. Okay, so just to quickly go back to this formula. The reason why Cambridge doesn't really use this formula is because it's in caps and they want you to understand the mechanics behind the formula. So they want you to be able to calculate the final amount without resorting to just a formula and not understanding what the formula means. Okay, so that's kind of the reason why we don't use this formula in Cambridge. Okay, cool stuff. So let's get to this question. So a principal of 750 becomes a total of 1320 in 8 years. Okay, what rate of interest was being paid? Okay, so we have to be very careful here. So we know what the principal amount is. Okay, let's just move this. So this is P. Okay, and this becomes a total of 1,320 in 8 years. So this essentially, if we think back to that formula, is A, which is my accumulated amount, or it's my total amount. Okay, now this is still my time period in T. Okay, we're not going to use that formula. Okay, but we need to find the rate of interest being paid. Okay, so we need to find R. Okay, so if we think back to that first formula that we used, so simple interest, this is equal to PRT over 100. Okay, so as things stand over here, we don't really know what the simple interest is. Okay, we don't know what that is. We just know what the principal amount is. Okay, we want to find this rate. We know what the time is, 8 years, but we don't know what the simple interest is. Okay, interesting enough, we know what the final amount is, or the total amount. So my simple interest is simply this final amount. So the 750, not 750, but the final amount of 1,320 minus the amount that I invested. Okay, so if we think about this previous question where we calculate the total, now they're giving me the total, okay, and they're giving me the principal amount, but they are just not giving me the simple interest. Okay, but now we can just subtract the one from the other, and we can calculate this. Okay, so the simple interest is 1,320 minus 750, and that's equal to 570. Okay, and we are sorted. We can calculate that rate. Okay, so now we have it, it's 570. Okay, so let's substitute the values and we'll shuffle around and we'll calculate the rate. Okay, so we have 570 is equal to, okay, let's see, so P was 750. Don't know what R is, and we know that the time is 8, and this is divided by 100. Okay, cool. So now I can just shuffle around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 750, going to multiply it by 8 and divide it by 100, and that gives me 60. So if we simplify this, so if we say 750 times 8 divided by 100, this will give me 60. Okay, so essentially we have 60R, and this is 570, and now we are going to solve for R. Okay. So divide by 60 on both sides, and my rate is equal to, let's see, let's just make sure that I did that correctly. Okay, that looks good. So 570 divided by 60, and my rate is 9.5%. Okay, great stuff. There we have it. So we didn't know what the simple interest was. So we first needed to take my total amount and subtract my principal to find what the simple interest was. Okay, great stuff. So this concept is important because we're going to get to compound now. So keep this idea in mind. Okay, so the idea of if I want to find the interest, I just take my final or my total amount and I subtract the principal amount. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, cool stuff. So finally, we get to compound interest. We are comfortable with the idea of simple interest. We understand that my simple interest, so the yearly amount that is calculated, okay, that is calculated purely from a single amount. So that single principal amount that I invest, okay, so it's a percentage that gets calculated and I receive that same amount every single year. Okay, so that's where the difference comes in with compound interest. Okay, so the word compound should already kind of give me an idea of what this is, because compound means to add. Okay, so if something is compounded, it's added. Okay, and that's exactly what compound interest is about. Okay, I'm going to explain this using a number line again. Okay, so stick with me, see if you can understand what I'm trying to say here. Okay, so let's say that again, I'm going to invest $1,000. Okay, so my principal amount, so P is equal to 1,000. Okay, and I'm starting off with 1,000 right here at period 0.